If normal ballot processing was going on in Georgia, why did the media say that counting was done for the night? Another law enforcement official steps forward to not enforce California's lockdown orders, plus President Trump rallies supporters in Georgia. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start with Georgia and this video, the surveillance video that has everybody talking. It emerged last week. We saw Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis of Trump's legal team talking about it. We saw other witnesses talking about it. And then we saw the attacks. This was the video where people left the room. Republican observers left the room. And then all of a sudden, ballots were pulled out in cases from under the table and counting continued. Now, Republicans are saying that they were forced out. They were forced to leave. Secretary of State's office said, nope, there's nothing going on. Here's a tweet from the office. The 90-second video of election workers at State Farm Arena purporting to show fraud was watched in its entirety, hours, by Georgia Secretary of State investigators. Shows normal ballot processing. Here is the fact check on it. So, he says this was normal ballot processing. But here's the deal, folks. You can look at that video all you want. You can talk to the Republican observers. Were they forced out? Were they just told, hey, you should go home because we're done? You can look at the video, but the fact of the matter is that if this was normal ballot processing, then what was the media talking about that night? Because what we heard from national media was that counting was done. Because of some water main break, they were going to stop counting. It was going to be done for the night. Here is CBS News on election night.
Well, we've also got some breaking news right now, so we want to check in with CBS's Mark Strassman. He is in Georgia, where they're having a big problem counting some of the votes. Mark?
A water pipe has broken inside the arena. They had counted 86,000 absentee ballots. We don't know how many more they have yet to tabulate, but all the tabulation of those ballots has now stopped.
So on election night, CBS News and other major media outlets were saying that they weren't going to be counting in State Farm Arena. There was a water main break. Here's local CBS, Channel 46.
You're talking about 40,000 ballots that were at State Farm Arena when that water main break happened, and those will not be counted tonight.
So why are media outlets, both national and local, saying that counting stopped when the Secretary of State in this video says, hey, it's just normal ballot processing, everything was going on? Well, people were kicked out of the room. People were told they were done for the night. All of us were told it was done because of a water main break. We know that part is absolutely not true. It was a leaky toilet that was fixed earlier in the day, had no impact to what was going on that night, yet national and local media told us they were done. They weren't done. The video, if it shows anything, shows that counting continued, yet we were all told that it was done. Republicans were told it was done, go home, you don't need to be here. Something is going on and it needs to be investigated. And Georgia elected officials are not stepping forward. And something needs to be looked at with this video because if anything, it shows that there's a crazy story going on and someone is lying. Media told all of us that counting was done. Counting has continued. Does that look like normal ballot processing to you? Does anything about that seem normal? I don't think so. So next, let's talk about what's going on in California. But first, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified. We're making our push for 150,000 subscribers, and we can do it with your help. All right, you know the lockdown orders are going crazy in some of these cities and states run by Democrats. California is a perfect example. They're about to go through and are going through major lockdowns again, even though we know that the lockdowns don't work. Some states had them, some states didn't. Virus goes up and down. WHO said lockdowns weren't good. You got to factor in people's mental health, their jobs, their security, interactions with people. It's not just about the virus. Yet here's what they do. They're imposing the lockdowns because lockdowns give control, and that's what the left wants. Well, now more and more law enforcement officials are stepping up and saying, we're not going to do this. These are unconstitutional. It is violating people's rights. We're not going to enforce it. And here's the story. A California sheriff on Saturday joined a growing list of law enforcement leaders in the state who refused to enforce recent coronavirus orders. Orange County Sheriff Don Barnes tweeted an announcement vowing not to send his deputies to enforce mask violations, social gatherings, or stay-at-home violations. Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom had issued a statewide quarantine order for localities where intensive care unit capacity drops below 15%, according to the New York Times. Now, the statement the sheriff released on Twitter was absolutely awesome. And I want to go over that a little bit, some of his talking points, because these Democrats, these left-wingers, and even some Republicans seem to forget that we live in the freest country in the world, governed by a constitution. We cannot solve problems the way a dictatorship does. We can't solve problems the way a monarchy does. We can't solve problems like some communist country. We have to solve them an American way, respecting our Constitution and people's rights. And here's more. Compliance with health orders is a matter of personal responsibility and not a matter of law enforcement, Barnes said in the statement. Orange County Sheriff's deputies will not be dispatched to or respond to calls for service to enforce compliance with face coverings, social gatherings, or stay-at-home orders only. To put the onus on law enforcement to enforce these orders against law-abiding citizens who are already struggling through difficult circumstances, while at the same time criticizing law enforcement and taking away tools to do our jobs, is both contradictory and disingenuous, he continued. That was awesome. That was absolutely awesome. He is not going to violate people's rights in order to enforce these laws. And he said this. He said it perfectly. Compliance with these health orders is a matter of personal responsibility. That's how we solve things in the United States of America. We get information out to folks, and they have to make the choices. I said this before. There is nothing that these lockdowns and these mandates and these government orders by left-wing officials will do to help the elderly and the vulnerable that the elderly and the vulnerable can't do for themselves. They can make their decisions. If stadiums were open and crowds came in, an elderly person, a vulnerable person might look and say, you know what? That is just too many people. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to watch the game on television. Guess what? That person is now safe. That person has taken personal responsibility. The rest of the people can make their own choices, assess their own risk, and live their own lives. This guy was awesome. I commend him. I hope others do the same. So next, let's talk about President Trump in Georgia. But first, just in time for Christmas, I got to invite you guys to check out World Fair. You need to check them out. These people will take any picture, photograph of a house, a favorite building in college, any architectural structure, and turn it into a handmade work of art. I've got these for every home I've ever lived in. People talk about it all the time. Just go to the World Fair link in the description. Use coupon code Bobby13 for 10% off. All right, let's talk about President Trump, because on Saturday he went to Georgia and he held a massive rally. And you had to wonder, he was doing this nonstop. Those last closing days of the campaign, 4 stops, 5 stops, even 6 stops. Just so much energy, so much excitement. Could he bring that post-election when all this controversy is going on, when all these legal challenges are going on? Well, guess what? He did it. He was there fighting for not only David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler, but for his own presidency, talking about the voter fraud, talking about the legal challenges, and he brought it. And here's President Trump.
President Trump received more votes than any previous incumbent president in history. Nationally, initial numbers show that 26% of President Trump's voting share came from non-white voters, the highest percentage for a GOP presidential candidate. President Trump won 18 of 19 bellwether counties. You know what a bellwether county is? It's a big deal.
So there, President Trump fired off some stats that I've mentioned before, these historic metrics, these measurements of presidents, of candidates who end up winning. President Trump met them all, and we're supposed to believe that Joe Biden didn't defy just one historical metric. He defied them all and won? I don't think so. And here's more from Trump.
All of our great, brilliant geniuses said you'd win if you get 67 or 68, it's over. We got 74 million plus, and they're trying to convince us that we lost. We didn't lose. As the great pollster, John McLaughlin, who's really a great pollster, one of the most highly respected, he said there's no way this could have happened other than the obvious cheating or a rigged election.
So it's not just Biden supposedly defied all these metrics, it's that over 1,000 people have signed affidavits attesting to voter fraud. Over 1,000. Hundreds of witnesses have come forward. People are testifying, knowing they could go to jail if what they're saying is not true. Yet they are coming forward. They are facing the heat, the retribution. They are facing the attacks, and they're doing it. They are talking about all of this. The media wants you to just move on. They are releasing stories saying, President Trump's thinking about 2024. No way. 2024 doesn't matter unless we fight this right now. And President Trump showed, and he really gave me hope that he is in this fight. And after nearly 2 hours, he was just getting warmed up. Here's President Trump.
Proud citizens like you help build this country, and together we are taking back our country. Our fight to drain the Washington swamp and reclaim America's destiny has just begun. We will not bend, we will not break, we will not yield. We will never give in, we will never give up, and we will never back down. We will never, ever surrender. Because we are Americans, and our hearts bleed red, white, and blue.
So that was just awesome. And again, if you needed a reason to keep fighting, to have some energy, all you had to do was look at President Trump and look at that speech. So next, I want to dissect a Fox News story that they wrote about the rally, because it's just pathetic, folks. And when you go in, you can see the wording that these so-called journalists use to steer the story a certain way. And even a story on the Fox News website falls for the same kind of thing. They are pushing the same kind of narrative to make you think that all of this is just a waste of time, that Biden's right, and all the rest of us are wrong. So President Trump, again, went to Georgia on Saturday to rally for Senators Perdue and Loeffler, but also to rally for his cause, to let us know that he's still fighting. He struck a great balance, I thought, between those two issues. But again, this was a Trump rally. He was supporting them, but he was rallying all of us to let us know that he's going to continue the fight. So the story talked about that, talked about him saying things about Perdue and Loeffler. Then it moved to President Trump's attack on Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Raffensperger, and it used some pretty strange wording. And here's the story. Trump implored Georgians to vote while still sowing distrust in the state's handling of elections. You must go vote. Vote early. They cheated. They rigged our presidential election, but we will still win it. They're going to try and rig this election too. Trump then hit the state's Republican governor, Brian Kemp. Your governor could stop it very easily if he knew what the hell he was doing. He said that Kemp and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger were afraid of Stacey Abrams, the former Democrat gubernatorial candidate and voting rights activist. So right there, with that one phrase, sowing distrust, they are putting the Biden camp on one side and President Trump on the other. This is all right, and this side is sowing distrust. We don't believe what's right. We're going to paint a different picture. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying with that one sentence. And then this so-called journalist really kicked it in. The president this week tweeted and retweeted baseless charges of voter fraud in Georgia, and he's repeatedly attacked Kemp and Raffensperger, who are both Trump supporters, for their refusal to reverse the election results. Conspiratorial claims by pro-Trump attorneys Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood this week further roiled the waters. They filed lawsuits seeking to overturn Georgia's results. Oh my gosh, you can have a whole show just dissecting those paragraphs. It is unreal, folks. I mean, right there, they are picking a side. And the media, even Fox News, throws out this phrase of baseless claims. They aren't baseless when eyewitnesses are attesting to voter fraud, when 1,000 affidavits have been filed. Those are not baseless claims, yet this story uses it. And again, paints Trump as the bad guy, paints Biden as president-elect, and he's good. It's just conspiratorial theories, baseless claims. That's what fills the story. And to wrap up, I just got to give you this clip from Fox News Sunday. Chris Wallace, he's interviewing HHS Secretary Alex Azar talking about coronavirus and actually has to interrupt the secretary while he's speaking to get in a point. And here's Wallace.
Well, Chris, I welcome Vice President Biden to the club. Since the middle of April, the president's guidelines for reopening have called for wearing masks.
President-elect, sir.
The president has called. The president has.
Unreal. He interrupts to say it's President-elect Biden. Alex Azar continues. He finally wraps up. And then when Chris Wallace has the floor again, he says this.
But first of all, it's the President-elect Joe Biden, Secretary Azar.
What is with this guy? It's like none of these witnesses, none of these affidavits, none of this testimony means anything to the media, the Democrats, Fox News, Chris Wallace. It doesn't matter. Joe Biden should be out there wanting his presidency to be legitimate and calling for these reviews, but none of them are doing it. They just want us all to move on. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell so you'll be notified, and we'll see you next time. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.